You know what they say about David, my ex-wife's voice carried across the banquet hall, silencing conversations as heads turned toward us. He couldn't even afford Ruby's ballet lessons without borrowing money. She laughed, the sound piercing through me like shards of glass. I stood frozen, my daughter's small hand clutching mine as whispers rippled through our former classmates. The high school reunion I'd dreaded for months had become every bit the nightmare I'd imagined. Just as I contemplated grabbing Ruby and fleeing, the grand doors swung open. Amelia Chen, Forbes-listed CEO and my direct boss, swept in with the confidence of someone who owned not just the building, but the very air around her. Her eyes locked with mine, and in that moment, everything changed. If you've ever felt the sting of public humiliation or wondered how life can transform in an instant, this story might resonate with you. Like, subscribe, and join me on this emotional journey that proves sometimes our greatest supporters appear when we least expect them. I never planned on being a single dad at 35. 5 years ago, I had what everyone called the perfect life, successful career in financial analysis, beautiful wife, and our precious 3-year-old daughter Ruby. We lived in a modest but comfortable home in the suburbs, and weekends were spent at playground adventures and family movie nights. Then came the late nights at the office for my wife Melissa, the suspicious text messages, and finally the confession: she'd fallen for her wealthy client, a real estate developer who could give her the lifestyle I couldn't. "I need more than this, David," she'd said, gesturing vaguely around our living room where Ruby's colorful drawings adorned the refrigerator and family photos lined the walls. "I'm suffocating in mediocrity." The divorce was quick, clinical, and devastating. Melissa wanted freedom more than custody, though she insisted on weekend visits and special occasions. I became Ruby's primary caregiver overnight, juggling school drop-offs, ballet lessons, and a job that barely kept us afloat after the divorce drained my savings. Our new apartment was half the size of our previous home, with a bedroom for Ruby and a pull-out couch in the living room for me. On the nights when Ruby missed her mother, would hold her as she cried herself to sleep, my own tears falling silently into her hair. "Why doesn't Mommy want to live with us anymore?" she would ask, her 8-year-old voice trembling with confusion. I never spoke ill of Melissa to Ruby. "Sometimes grown-ups need different things to be happy," I would explain gently. "But we both love you very much." The words tasted bitter, but I swallowed my resentment for Ruby's sake. My financial situation grew increasingly dire as the months passed. Child support checks from Melissa came irregularly, and when they did, they were often accompanied by excuses about temporary cash flow issues, this despite her Instagram showcasing lavish vacations and designer shopping sprees with her new partner. I took on freelance work at night after Ruby went to bed, the blue light of my laptop illuminating our tiny living room as I fought to keep my eyes open until dawn. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday morning when I received an email about a prestigious financial firm, Chen Global Investments, seeking an experienced analyst for their expanding domestic operations. The salary listed was nearly double what I was making. With trembling hands, I updated my resume and submitted my application, trying not to get my hopes up. 3 interviews later, I found myself sitting across from Amelia Chen herself, the founder and CEO of the multinational investment firm. At 42, she had built her empire from scratch after walking away from a toxic marriage with nothing but her economics degree and unshakable determination. Business magazines called her ruthless, but the woman who interviewed me showed a sharp intelligence tempered with surprising warmth. "Your portfolio analysis is impressive," she said, examining my sample work. "But tell me about the gap in your employment last year." I hesitated, then decided honesty was my only option. My daughter was having trouble adjusting to the divorce. She needed therapy, and her appointments often conflicted with work hours. I took a step back career-wise to be there for her. It was the right decision, even though it cost me professionally. I expected disappointment in her eyes. Instead, I saw something flash across her face, recognition, perhaps. "Mr. Ellis, at Chen Global, we believe that caring for family demonstrates character, not weakness." She closed my file. We need analysts who understand that true value isn't just measured in quarterly reports. You start Monday. Working for Amelia changed everything. The salary allowed me to move Ruby to a better apartment in a good school district. My flexible hours meant I could attend her school events and help with homework. For the first time since the divorce, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. Ruby blossomed too. Her nightmares decreased, her grades improved, and she made new friends. The child who had once been withdrawn and anxious became chatty and confident. Only occasionally would sadness cloud her eyes, usually after weekend visits with Melissa that had been cancelled at the last minute or cut short. "It's okay, Dad," she would say with a maturity that broke my heart. "Mom is really busy with important stuff." I never told her that important stuff usually meant spontaneous trips to Paris or weekends at exclusive resorts, priorities that repeatedly trumped spending time with her daughter. Then came the invitation that would upend our carefully reconstructed lives. My 15-year high school reunion, taking place at an upscale hotel downtown. I nearly threw it away immediately. The thought of facing old classmates, explaining my divorce, my modest lifestyle, it all seemed like unnecessary torture. But the invitation mentioned a family-friendly afternoon event before the adults-only evening gala. Ruby found the embossed card on our counter. "Dad, can we go? Please." Her eyes lit up at the thought of an elegant hotel party. I could wear my new dress, the blue one with the sparkles. How could I deny her such simple excitement? "Sure, Rubes. We'll make an appearance at the family part." What I hadn't counted on was Melissa's presence. She had attended a different high school, but as it turned out, she was now dating Carson Blake, the former football captain who had barely acknowledged my existence during our school years. When the reunion's social media page announced their attendance as a couple, my stomach twisted into knots. Still, I had promised Ruby, and I refused to break promises to my daughter the way her mother routinely did. The week before the reunion brought another complication. A major potential investor was visiting from Singapore, and Amelia asked me to prepare comprehensive projections for a Monday morning meeting. "I know it's short notice," she said, her normally composed demeanor showing rare signs of stress. "This client could double our Asian market presence overnight. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't crucial." "Of course," I assured her, already mentally rearranging my weekend around completing the work. "I'll have everything ready." Saturday arrived with perfect early summer weather. I helped Ruby into her treasured blue dress, marveling at how grown-up she looked at 8 years old, with her dark hair carefully braided and her mother's hazel eyes sparkling with excitement. "You look beautiful, Rubes," I said, straightening her matching headband. "Do you think Mom will think so too?" she asked hopefully. Despite everything, Melissa's approval still meant the world to her. "She'd have to be blind not to," I answered honestly. The hotel ballroom was transformed with blue and silver decorations, our school colors. Ruby gasped in delight at the elaborate dessert table and the photo booth with silly props. For a while, the afternoon proceeded better than I had dared hope. Ruby made fast friends with other children, and I managed polite small talk with former classmates who seemed genuinely interested in my work at Chun Global. Several expressed surprise that I had landed a position at such a prestigious firm, which I chose to take as a compliment rather than an insult. Then Melissa arrived on Carson's arm, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup flawless. She looked exactly like the glossy Instagram posts she was famous for among her followers. Carson, successful in commercial real estate development and looking every bit the part in his tailored suit, surveyed the room with the same entitled confidence he'd had as a teenager. Ruby spotted her mother immediately and ran across the room. "Mommy! Look at my dress. Dad got it for my birthday." Melissa bent slightly, careful not to crease her outfit. "It's very nice, honey. Though we could have found something a bit more current at Neiman Marcus next time you're with me." Ruby's smile dimmed slightly, but she persisted in her excitement. Are you staying for the whole party? Dad said we have to leave before the grown-up part starts, but maybe you could come over after for movies? Before Melissa could respond, Carson interjected. We have dinner reservations at Latelier at 8, Princess. Maybe another time. I approached then, extending my hand to Carson with forced civility. Good to see you, Carson. He gave my hand a perfunctory shake. David. Heard you're working at some investment place now. Chin Global, I corrected. I'm a senior analyst there. He nodded dismissively before turning to catch the attention of a former teammate across the room. Melissa's gaze swept over me critically. At least you've upgraded your wardrobe since Chin Global. I always told you those bargain store suits weren't doing you any favors. I bit back a retort. Ruby has been looking forward to seeing you. She mentioned you canceled last weekend's visit. Melissa's expression hardened. We had an emergency with the West Side development. Carson needed me at the meeting with the investors. I can't just drop everything for a playground visit. She waited by the window for 3 hours, Melissa. Don't start, David. Her voice took on the cold edge I knew too well. Not everyone can have a job that revolves around playdates and school pickups. Some of us have actual careers to manage. I felt the familiar burn of anger and hurt, but kept my voice level. My career is doing just fine. And Ruby needs consistency, not just Instagram posts of the presents you send her. Carson rejoined us, placing a possessive hand on Melissa's waist. Problem here? No problem, I assured him, taking a step back. Just discussing Ruby's schedule. Right, he smirked. Schedules. Important stuff for middle management types, I guess. I excused myself to check on Ruby, who was watching us anxiously from the dessert table. The afternoon continued in this vein, superficial pleasantries layered over thinly veiled condescension. I kept reminding myself we only needed to stay another hour before making a graceful exit. I could complete my work for Amelia after Ruby went to bed, and this uncomfortable reunion would become just another unpleasant memory. But then came the speech portion of the event. Carson, naturally, had been asked to say a few words as the former class president. He took to the small stage with practiced ease, reminiscing about championship games and legendary parties. The crowd ate it up, laughing at his inside jokes and nodding at his observations about how far they'd all come. Some of us more than others, he added, his gaze finding me in the crowd. Speaking of which, I want to thank David Ellis for showing up today. Brave man, considering everything. But that's always been David, persistent, even when the odds are against him. Confused murmurs rippled through the room. I felt a cold dread spreading through my chest. For those who don't know, Carson continued, his voice dropping to a mock confidential tone, David here is the living example of the saying, nice guys finish last. His ex-wife, my gorgeous girlfriend Melissa, finally decided to stop settling. Can't blame her, right? Shocked laughter followed. Some people looked uncomfortable, others openly amused. My face burned with humiliation. Carson, someone called out. Maybe save this for the evening portion? But Melissa had joined Carson on stage now, laughing as she took the microphone. It's fine. David doesn't mind, do you, David? He's always been so understanding. She emphasized the word like it was a character flaw. You know what they say about David. He couldn't even afford Ruby's ballet lessons without borrowing money. The room went silent. Ruby stood beside me, her small hand finding mine, her eyes wide with confusion and distress. I wanted to shield her from this, to spirit her away, but my feet felt anchored to the floor. Every eye in the room was on us, some pitying, others entertained by the public spectacle of my humiliation. Actually, a commanding voice cut through the silence, David Ellis is one of the most financially astute individuals I have ever had the privilege of employing. The crowd parted as Amelia Chen strode into the ballroom, elegant in a simple black dress that somehow made everyone else look overdressed. Her presence immediately transformed the atmosphere, people straightened, conversations hushed. Even those who likely didn't recognize her could sense her authority. "I'm Amelia Chen, CEO of Chen Global Investments," she announced, walking directly to where Ruby and I stood frozen. "I apologize for crashing your reunion, but I need my senior analyst for an emergency consultation." She turned to me with a warm smile. "David, I'm sorry to interrupt your weekend." Before I could respond, Melissa stepped forward, recognition dawning on her face. "Amelia Chen? The Amelia Chen? Forbes' most powerful women in business?" Amelia assessed Melissa with cool professionalism. "Yes. And you are?" "Melissa Williams. I'm in real estate development with Blake Properties." She gestured to Carson, who had lost his smug expression and was now attempting to look impressive. "I'm actually David's ex-wife." "Ah," Amelia nodded, her expression revealing nothing. "How interesting that you would publicly mock the financial acumen of someone whose analysis just secured Chen Global a $400 million investment portfolio." She turned to me. "That's actually why I'm here. The Singapore investors moved up their timeline. They were impressed with your projections and want to finalize immediately." The room had gone completely silent. Carson looked like he'd swallowed something unpleasant. Melissa's perfect smile had frozen in place. Amelia bent slightly to address Ruby. "And you must be Ruby. Your father talks about you all the time. That's a very beautiful dress." Ruby beamed up at her. "Thank you. Are you really my dad's boss? He says you're the smartest person he's ever met." Amelia laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to break the tension in the room. "That's very kind of him. I think your dad is pretty smart too." She straightened and addressed me again. "I have the car outside if you're ready. We can drop Ruby anywhere she needs to go." I found my voice at last. "Thank you, Amelia. That's incredibly thoughtful." Ruby was actually looking forward to spending some time with her mother this evening. I turned to Melissa, whose expression had shifted from shock to calculation. "Actually," Melissa said smoothly, "we had dinner reservations, but—" "But nothing comes before family," Carson interjected quickly, clearly trying to salvage the situation. "We'd love to have Ruby for the evening. In fact, she could stay overnight if that would make things easier for you, David. Given your important work obligations." The sudden reversal would have been amusing if it weren't so transparent. I looked down at Ruby, whose eyes were now shining with excitement at the prospect of time with her mother. "Would you like that, Rubes?" I asked softly. She nodded enthusiastically. "Can I, Dad? Please." "Of course." I knelt to hug her tightly. "Be good, and I'll pick you up tomorrow morning. We'll have pancakes at that place you like." As Ruby went to Melissa's side, Amelia placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Shall we? The investors are waiting at the Ritz." We left the ballroom together, aware of every eye following our exit. In the hallway, I finally exhaled the breath I felt I'd been holding for hours. "Amelia, I don't know how to thank you," I began, but she waved my gratitude away. "There is no emergency meeting, David," she admitted once we were safely in the elevator. "I was dropping off some contracts with a client in the hotel when I overheard what was happening in your reunion. I hope you don't mind my intervention." I stared at her in disbelief. "You made all that up? About the Singapore investors?" "Not entirely. They were very impressed with your projections last week. The timeline hasn't changed, but they will almost certainly sign with us." The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and she continued walking toward the exit. "I simply expedited the announcement of your success. I don't appreciate seeing my team members mistreated." Outside, her driver waited beside a sleek black car. "Can I offer you a ride home?" she asked. Unless you'd prefer to go back to the reunion? I laughed, the tension of the afternoon finally breaking. I think I've had enough reunion memories for 1 decade, thank you. During the drive to my apartment, I found myself uncharacteristically talkative, the emotional aftermath of the confrontation spilling out in words. I don't understand why Melissa feels the need to humiliate me. The divorce was her choice. She left us. Isn't that enough? Amelia listened thoughtfully. Some people need to justify their choices by rewriting history. If she portrays you as inadequate, then her decision to leave becomes righteous rather than selfish. But to do that in front of Ruby. The pain of that struck deep. That was unforgivable, Amelia agreed quietly. Children should never be collateral damage in adult conflicts. When the car pulled up to my building, I hesitated. Would you like to come up for coffee? It's the least I can offer after your rescue today. She considered for a moment, then nodded. I'd like that. My apartment, while much improved from our post-divorce accommodations, was still modest by any standard, especially compared to what I imagined was Amelia's living situation. But it was clean and comfortable, with Ruby's artwork framed on the walls and bookshelves filled with both my finance texts and Ruby's growing collection of novels. It's lovely, Amelia said, examining a photo of Ruby and me at the zoo. You've created a real home here. It's nothing special, I demurred, busying myself with the coffee maker. On the contrary, she countered, settling onto one of the kitchen stools. I've been in penthouses that felt less like homes than this does. As I prepared the coffee, Amelia asked about my divorce, and I found myself sharing more than I had with anyone else, the shock of Melissa's announcement, the struggle to keep Ruby's world stable, the financial tightrope I'd walked. The worst part was seeing Ruby wait by the window when Melissa would promise to visit and then cancel, I admitted. I could handle the insults to my pride, but watching my daughter's heart break again and again. You're a good father, David, Amelia said simply. That's worth more than all Carson's real estate developments combined. I brought our coffees to the small dining table. Can I ask you something personal? She nodded, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. The magazines always mention you left a marriage with nothing. Is that true? A shadow crossed her face. Yes. My ex-husband was controlling. Financially, emotionally. When I finally found the courage to leave, he froze our accounts, claimed I'd embezzled company funds, and had me blacklisted in our industry. I rebuilt from zero. She sipped her coffee. Which is why I have little patience for people who use wealth or status as weapons. We talked for hours, the conversation flowing naturally from our divorces to business strategy, books we'd read, and eventually to Ruby's school challenges and triumphs. It was nearly midnight when Amelia glanced at her watch with surprise. I should go, she said, standing. Thank you for the coffee. And the conversation. At the door, she paused. There's a children's charity gala next Saturday at the Botanical Gardens. It's a daytime event, family-friendly. Perhaps you and Ruby would like to join me? The invitation caught me off guard. That would be, yes, we'd like that very much. After she left, I sat in the quiet apartment, processing the day's dramatic turns. For the first time since the divorce, I felt something unexpected taking root, not just gratitude for Amelia's intervention, but a sense of possibility I'd long forgotten. The next morning, I picked up Ruby from Melissa's condo as planned. She bounded into my arms with her usual enthusiasm, chattering about the movie they'd watched and the ice cream they'd eaten. Melissa hovered in the doorway, her manner noticeably different from the previous day. David, about yesterday, she began awkwardly. Carson was out of line. We both were. I nodded, not particularly interested in her belated apology. It's fine. Water under the bridge. I didn't realize you were doing so well at Chen Global, she continued. That's really impressive. The naked calculation in her eyes told me everything I needed to know about her sudden respect. It wasn't about me at all, but about what my connection to Amelia Chen might mean for her and Carson's business aspirations. "Thanks, Melissa. We should go," promised Ruby those pancakes. As we walked to the car, Ruby looked up at me. "Dad? Are you mad at Mom about yesterday?" I helped her buckle her seatbelt. "No, Rubes. Grown-ups sometimes say things they shouldn't when they're trying to impress other people. It doesn't make it right, but it happens. Carson said your boss is really important and rich. She is. But that's not why she's special. She's smart and kind and works harder than anyone I know." Ruby considered this. I liked her. She didn't talk to me like I'm a baby. I smiled. She invited us to a special party at the Botanical Gardens next weekend. "Would you like to go?" Her enthusiastic response was answer enough. The following week brought unexpected developments at work. Amelia assigned me to lead the presentation for the Singapore investors, publicly acknowledging my contribution to securing the deal. My colleagues, who had always been cordial but distant, suddenly included me in lunch invitations and after-work gatherings. I found myself navigating a new social terrain both professionally and personally. When Saturday arrived, Ruby was up at dawn, eager for our outing with Amelia. She insisted on wearing a yellow sundress and carefully arranging her favorite barrettes in her hair. "Do I look okay, Dad?" she asked, twirling for inspection. "You look perfect," I assured her, touched by her excitement. The charity gala was held in the conservatory garden, with flowering plants and fountains creating a magical backdrop. Amelia met us at the entrance, casual elegance in white linen pants and a blue silk blouse. She greeted Ruby warmly and presented her with a small gift, a delicate bracelet with a butterfly charm. "Because butterflies remind us that beautiful transformations are always possible," she explained as she fastened it around Ruby's wrist. The afternoon was filled with laughter and easy conversation. Amelia introduced us to her friends and colleagues without pretension, simply as David and Ruby, who I'm delighted could join me today. There was no mention of me being her employee or our unusual meeting at the reunion. Ruby was thoroughly enchanted by the children's activities, face painting, a magician, and a string quartet playing Disney songs. "Your daughter is remarkable," Amelia observed as we watched Ruby collaborating with other children to build a massive structure out of eco-friendly building blocks. "She has such natural leadership qualities." "She's resilient," I agreed. "More than any child should have to be." Amelia's hand briefly touched mine. "Children learn resilience from their parents, David." That touch, brief as it was, sent an unexpected warmth through me. I found myself noticing things about Amelia I'd overlooked in our professional relationship, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed genuinely, how she listened intently to whoever was speaking, even the children, the quiet confidence in her movements. As the event wound down, Ruby fell asleep in a garden chair, exhausted from the day's excitement. I gently gathered her in my arms. "Let me have my driver take you home," Amelia offered. "Thank you, but we're fine on the bus. It's not far." I hesitated. "Would you like to join us for dinner sometime next week?" "Something simple, at our place. Ruby makes surprisingly good spaghetti." Amelia's smile lit up her face. "I'd love that." The following months brought gradual but profound changes to our lives. Amelia became a regular visitor to our apartment, initially under the pretext of work discussions, then openly as a friend. Ruby adored her, especially after Amelia introduced her to coding through child-friendly programming games. My relationship with Amelia evolved carefully, mindfully, both of us aware of the professional boundaries we were navigating. Melissa's attitude shifted as well. Her cancellations became less frequent, and she began making more consistent efforts with Ruby. Whether this stemmed from genuine reflection or simply calculation regarding my improved circumstances, I couldn't say, but Ruby benefited either way. It was nearly a year after the reunion when Amelia and I acknowledged what had been growing between us. We were sitting on my small balcony after Ruby had gone to bed, the city lights twinkling below us. "I've been offered a position at Westridge Capital," I told her. "Senior Portfolio Manager." She nodded, unsurprised. "Marshall called me for a reference. I told him he'd be lucky to have you. You're not upset?" "Why would I be? It's an excellent opportunity, David. You deserve it." She looked at me directly. "Though I'll miss having you at Chun Global." I thought about declining, I admitted. "Because of complications." "Complications?" "Us," I said simply. "Whatever this is becoming." Amelia set down her wine glass. "David, I would never want to hold you back professionally. That's exactly what Melissa did to you, made you feel smaller to serve her narrative. I won't repeat that pattern." "It's not the same," I protested. "I've never felt diminished by you. Quite the opposite." "Then take the job. And then, if you're still interested, perhaps we could explore these complications without the employer-employee dynamic." 3 weeks later, on my last day at Chun Global, Amelia threw a small gathering for my departure. Colleagues presented me with thoughtful gifts and genuine well wishes. As the celebration wound down, Amelia handed me an envelope. "A parting bonus," she explained. "You've earned it many times over." Inside was a check that made my eyes widen, along with a handwritten note, "Dinner tomorrow? Just us. No titles, no hierarchy. Just David and Amelia." My new position at Westridge brought fresh challenges and opportunities. The increased salary allowed me to start a college fund for Ruby and finally purchase a small house with a garden where she could play. Amelia and I began dating officially, taking things slowly for Ruby's sake. We were careful to build a relationship based on mutual respect and shared values, not rescuer and rescued. Melissa's reaction to my relationship with Amelia was predictably complex. Initial disdain gave way to reluctant respect, especially after Carson's development company hit financial troubles and Amelia's firm, coincidentally, acquired the distressed properties at favorable terms. 2 years after that fateful reunion, Ruby, now 10, sat me down for a serious conversation. "Dad, when are you going to ask Amelia to marry you?" she demanded with characteristic directness. "You love her, and she loves us." I laughed, caught off guard by her bluntness. "It's complicated, Rubes. Adults always say that when they're scared," she replied with exasperated wisdom. "Amelia isn't scared. She told me so." "She discussed this with you?" Ruby rolled her eyes. "Not exactly. But she said the best investments are the ones that seem risky but are actually sure things if you look at the evidence correctly." "I think she was talking about you, Dad." 6 months later, Amelia and I were married in a small ceremony with Ruby as our flower girl and self-proclaimed family unification consultant. Melissa attended with her new partner, not Carson, who had moved to Chicago after their breakup, and offered a surprisingly heartfelt congratulations. "She's good for both of you," Melissa acknowledged. "I can see that now." Life settled into a new normal. Amelia's work remained demanding, as did mine, but we prioritized family dinners and Ruby's school events. We bought a larger home with enough space for Amelia's extensive library and my modest woodworking hobby, plus a room where Ruby could pursue her growing interest in science and technology. 5 years to the day after the high school reunion, I received another invitation in the mail. The 20th reunion was approaching. I showed it to Amelia over breakfast. "Planning to attend?" she asked. "I'm not sure. Last time wasn't exactly a highlight." Ruby, now 13 and increasingly opinionated, grabbed a piece of toast. "I think you should go, Dad. Show everyone how awesome your life is now." Amelia smiled at her. Out of the mouths of babes. I considered it. "Would you come with me? Both of you?" Absolutely, Amelia agreed. Though I promise not to create any fake business emergencies this time. Ruby high-fived her stepmother. Unless Dad needs rescuing again. I don't think I'll need rescuing, I said, looking at the two most important people in my life. Not anymore. The reunion came and went without drama. Carson wasn't there, his business failures had apparently made him reluctant to face old classmates. Melissa attended briefly, polite but subdued. People who had whispered about me 5 years earlier now approached to network and reminisce. I introduced Amelia not as my billionaire wife, but simply as the woman I loved. Later that night, as we drove home, Ruby sleeping in the back seat, Amelia squeezed my hand. Redemption narratives are satisfying, aren't they? I shook my head. It's not about redemption. It's about growth. 5 years ago, I was defined by what I'd lost. Now I'm defined by what I've found. She leaned her head against my shoulder. And what have you found, David Ellis? I glanced in the rearview mirror at Ruby, then at the extraordinary woman beside me. A family. Confidence. Purpose. I smiled. And the knowledge that sometimes life's worst moments lead to its greatest gifts. As we pulled into our driveway, the porch light welcoming us home, I reflected on the journey from that humiliating moment at the reunion to this peaceful night. There had been no miraculous transformation, no fairy godmother waving a wand to fix everything instantly. Real change had come through daily choices, hard work, and the courage to remain open to possibility even after heartbreak. If there was a lesson in my story, perhaps it was this: dignity cannot be taken from you unless you surrender it, and the most powerful response to humiliation is not revenge, but living well. Success isn't measured by the size of your bank account or the impression you make at reunions, but by the love you give and receive, and the person you become through life's challenges. Ruby stirred in the back seat, her eyes fluttering open as the car stopped. Are we home? Amelia and I exchanged a smile. Yes, we answered together. We're home. If this story touched your heart or reminded you that life can change in unexpected ways, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience, redemption, and the extraordinary power of human connection. Remember, your lowest moment might just be the beginning of your greatest chapter.